Now that Donald Trump is officially or unofficially the president-elect of the United States from 2025, this this news or this event is going to impact Africa a lot, because as we all know, neither Donald Trump or Kamala Harris didn't mention Africa anywhere in their campaign or in their plans in whatever. That's not our problem. But what is the impact to this? If Donald Trump and administration is going to prioritize the American First policy, that means that it also going to play a very huge role in the African economic growth and development eventually for whatever project, whatever plan each and every African country has. So these are some of the things that we as an African nation, we as Africans should be aware of, because we were not in their plan. We have never been in the plan, aside stalling or aside stealing resources and stuff like this. But these are things that we have to be aware of henceforth, considering that they are going to be prioritizing the American First policies. One, we should be aware of reduced U.S.-African trade investments. We should know that U.S. is going to reduce or maybe stop investing in African nation, because with the American First stance, the American First policy often translates to protectionist policies. That means we are protecting our whatever, so which could mean higher tariffs, higher trade policies, tighter trade policies for other nations or other continents, other nations preferably, because even though the same countries in the same continent where they are, they also have the face difficulties as Africans. So the first thing that Africans or African nations should be aware of is that the United States is going to reduce the U.S.-Africa trade investments, which is going to impact us somehow, because this might result to when the FDI, which is the foreign direct investment in Africa, is cut off, of course, or reduced. We know that, of course, African nations may need to start prioritizing or seeking new trade agreements, either seek new trade agreements with the U.S. itself, or try to strengthen ties with other nations around, or other nations that have been, wanting to work with us or that started working with us already. And secondly, there's a high potential decline for U.S. foreign aid development programs. So this is for sure. Like the PEPFAR, which stands for the Presidential Emergency Plan for Africa for AIDS relief. It's an education, infrastructure, and development plan that helps, or that is there for helping countries find alternative ways to surviving this, or relieving. Oh no, sorry, I'm mixing things up. This is these are other ways through which the United States kind of aid. These are programs that are just there to aid other countries in sectors, in the education sector, infrastructure, development, healthcare, whatever. So it's called the Presidential Emergency Plan for AIDS relief. So like the AIDS fund, it's owned by the U.S. government. So, but if America, with Donald Trump as head of state, implementing the American First policy, of course, then we know the budget for this might be cut or reduced. So what is Africa? We're talking about Africa here. What is Africa supposed to be doing at this crucial time? So what we're supposed to be doing is simply get into outsource funding from other places, get alternative fundings, possibly through private sector partnerships, or let's say, or support from multilateral organizations like the World Bank. Still kind of has direct or indirect relations with the United States, but we could get support from the World Bank, we could get support from the African Development Bank. So this is the second point. These programs are going to be declined, or they're going to be declined or ended. So let's not be surprised when Donald Trump is going to come out and say, okay, we are stopping this aid funding, or so this should be coming. And thirdly, increased influence of non-U.S. global powers. So with less U.S. presence in Africa, because now we have very less U.S. presence, even though they are still there, unlike in Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria, we have less U.S. presence in African economic and geographical affairs as well. So other global powers, primarily China, but also Russia, Turkey, and India, we should think about expanding. We should think about expanding our affairs to this other continents, like China especially. China, for instance, has been making significant investments in Africa, in African infrastructure, technology, natural resources, healthcare, and yeah. So this shift could offer African countries alternative development financing, but may also bring challenges, because we've had in the past working with this other global entities, challenges in that. For instance, we had, like in my country, where they come with the resources, but then they bring in the manpower, and then but still we need to increase influence. We need to increase the influence of non-U.S. global powers in the continent, because when the continent is really weak, we are not boasting to be economically strong to be able to handle things by ourselves. So if America is prioritizing the American first policy, what we should be doing is thinking about, okay, we need to increase the influence of other global powers. China is one, Russia, India, Turkey. We need to think about this. It's very, very important. And then also we have the acceleration of inter-African economy integration. This is to me, this is like the highest point. This is one of the things that we need to do now. Okay, the United States is emphasizing on Africa first, on America first. This is the time for us to be doing Africa first. We need to accelerate our intra-African economic integration. That means that we need to reduce the U.S. focus, reduce even the global. The reason why I mentioned bringing in, accelerating global ties with other global, bringing in China, blah, 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 is because we are still not focusing or accelerating our own economic integration. We are not prioritizing economic integration within Africa itself. So this is where we should now say, okay, if America is doing America first, we should be doing Africa first, So a reduced U.S. Focus on Africa could further encourage African countries to look, inward and increase efforts to build stronger intercontinental economic affairs or economic ties. So the African continent is the African continental free trade area represents a major opportunity to boost trade within Africa. So reduce dependency on known African markets. So when we reduce dependency on known African markets, that means we are kind of, when we reduce this and then foster economic resilience. Of course, by doing this, trade barriers and improving infrastructure within the African country can create a way larger, unified, stronger market. Of course, it will be vulnerable to other external or internal factors, but as time goes on, we're going to get there. So this should be like the point that we should try to achieve. And last but not the least, of course, we have environmental and climate funding challenges. We know all these multinational organizations that are being funded by the United Nations or by the European Union Green Deal or United Nations Green Climate Fund are actually not, all their HQs, their headquarters are either in America, they are in Europe. So as an African continent, not getting funding for all these SDGs, all the sustainable development goals, all this climate impactful funding, what should we do? Trump's previous policy have not prioritized climate action. So we know that, well, in 2016, when he was president, he didn't prioritize any climate action. I mean, he was campaigning for more gas and stuff and non-biogas. So it's possible that the U.S. support for global climate initiative may again be deprioritized, because he's gonna say, "Oh, this, I don't put this in my, this is there, but I don't prioritize it." So Africa being highly vulnerable to climate change, what should we do? We should, since we are the most vulnerable, we should, we are the most vulnerable, and rely on international funding and corporations to address climate adaptation, renewable energy, and whatever. What we need to do is, if the U.S. support wants African countries to, if before now we have been reliant on the funding from the United States to tackle climate change matters, this is the moment we should say, okay, African nations may need to prioritize building green economy, that's attractive, sustainable, reliable, and economically profitable to the African nation. So these are the factors that we have to take into consideration, minding or being mindful of the fact that Donald Trump and his administration is going to be deploying the America First. We should also look at these aspects and say, okay, this is where we want to be. Because in the next 4 years, trust you me, it's going to be Africa begging and crying, and maybe signing the worst deals with all these global powers, because now America is, we don't get enough from America. And now we're going to go to all these other global powers, China, Russia, Turkey, India, and then say, we don't get money from Papa. And then you come now and say, oh, I'm going to give you this. For, of course, when we are going to them, we should be mindful of the after effects, and prioritizing our own internal integration, accelerating internal integration should be mentioned, should be taken into consideration as well. So these are the things that we should take note, because it's Africa. We are not in their plan. We have never been in their plan. If it's not for making us second class, we should start thinking about ourselves. Merci.